You're not unlucky. You're not broken. You're not cursed to keep meeting the same type of person over and over again. But if you've noticed a pattern, if you found yourself in multiple toxic relationships or friendships that all felt eerily similar, you might be wondering why. The real answer isn't about luck at all. It's about how your brain learned to recognize love, safety, and familiarity. Here's what happens. When you grow up in a chaotic household, in an environment where affection comes mixed with criticism, or where love feels unpredictable, your nervous system learns a very specific definition of intimacy. It learns that closeness means tension, that connection means walking on eggshells, that someone cares about you by how much they make you work for their approval. This doesn't feel like a bad thing when you're a kid. It feels normal. It feels like home. Then you become an adult and you walk into a room, you meet someone new. And without knowing why, you're drawn to a person who carries that same energy. Maybe they're charming at first. Maybe they're unpredictable. Maybe they criticize you in a way that feels strangely familiar. And your body recognizes it. Your nervous system lights up. This feels right. This feels like love. But the real answer is far stranger than simple nostalgia. Psychologists call this the repetition compulsion, and it's far more powerful than most people realize. A study by psychologist Harriet Lerner found that people who grew up in unstable or emotionally unpredictable homes actually become hypersensitive to the emotional signals of others. You've spent years learning to read tiny shifts in mood, tone, and energy. You're an expert at detecting when someone is upset before they even speak. You can feel tension in a room the way other people feel temperature. This skill is valuable, but it comes with a cost. When you meet someone toxic, someone with unresolved anger or narcissistic traits, you're drawn to them precisely because you can read them. You can predict what they need. You know how to manage their moods. They don't feel threatening the way they might to someone else because you've already spent your whole life in that dance. And here's the cruel part. The person doesn't even need to be obviously toxic at first. They just need to be familiar. A study published in the Journal of Family Psychology tracked hundreds of people over 10 years and found something unexpected. Adults who had insecure attachments to their parents didn't simply avoid similar patterns. Instead, they unconsciously sought out partners with matching attachment styles, recreating the same dynamic over and over. Why? Because your brain is trying to solve an old problem somewhere inside without you consciously knowing it. Your nervous system believes that if you can just get this person to love you the right way, if you can just be good enough or smart enough or patient enough, you can heal the original wound. You can finally get the consistent, unconditional love you didn't receive before. It's not a conscious thought. It's a compulsion. It's your nervous system trying to rewrite history. So you attract toxic people for a very specific reason. You attract them because you recognize them, and you stay because you're trying to fix them. But here's where it gets interesting. This pattern isn't permanent. It's not your destiny. A groundbreaking study by psychologist Bessel van der Kolk showed that people can rewire their nervous system's threat detection. When you become aware of what you're doing, when you can name the pattern, something shifts. You start to notice the red flags earlier. The charming behavior that used to feel like attention starts to look like manipulation. The criticism that felt like care starts to feel like control. The goal isn't to stop being sensitive to other people. You don't want to lose that skill. Sensitivity is a strength. The goal is to retrain your nervous system to recognize safety as well as danger, to learn what healthy consistency feels like, to understand that real love doesn't require you to manage someone else's emotions. This takes time. Real change is slow. You might find yourself avoiding the obvious toxic people only to end up with someone more subtle, someone who seems fine on the surface, but has the same underlying patterns of control, criticism, or unpredictability. This is progress, actually. You're healing in layers. The real shift happens when you start asking different questions. Not, can I fix this person? But do I feel safe? Not, are they going to change? but do they respect my boundaries? Not, will they eventually love me the right way? But do they already love me the way I need? When you start to notice how someone treats you when they're upset, when you watch whether they take responsibility or blame you, when you see if they change when you say no, that's your nervous system learning a new definition of love. And here's the counterintuitive truth. The people you attract next won't be exciting in the way you're used to. They won't trigger that familiar alarm in your chest. Healthy people can feel boring at first. They don't come with chaos. They don't require constant emotional labor. They're stable. They keep their word. They apologize when they're wrong. And because they don't trigger that old familiar pattern, your nervous system might tell you something is wrong. You're not unlucky. You're healing. Every time you choose someone different, every time you walk away from someone who feels familiar but isn't good for you, you're rewiring the deepest part of your brain. You're teaching your nervous system that safety doesn't mean chaos, that love doesn't mean control, that intimacy doesn't require you to lose yourself. The toxic people you've attracted in the past weren't a mistake. They were your nervous system's best guess at the time. But now you know better. And that knowledge changes everything.